Good afternoon. Welcome to the Focus 2024 Annual Report in Town Hall. I am Gwendolyn Bork. I'm the president of Focus for our community. And we have with us Dan Webb with Catalyst Research. Hi, Dan. How are you today?
Hi, Gwendolyn. I'm doing fine, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Dan, if you could just real quick, just elaborate on our partnership, what that looks like, what your piece is in creating this report and our partnership throughout the year.
Sure. So Focus is, and Gwendolyn will get into this a little bit, is a federally funded grant, is supported by a federally funded grant through the Office of National Drug Control Policy in the White House. And so through that grant funding, there is a requirement for a lot of data collection and data analysis and reporting. And that requirement is to have an external party that is sort of expert in those areas. And my company, Catalyst Research, and second company, Catalyst Insight, work with Focus to do everything from survey administration to data analysis and reporting back to the feds, and creation of things, co-creation of things like this annual report here where we kind of get together and talk about, and town hall where we get together and talk about findings and next steps and things like that. So we work very closely. We've worked very closely for a long time now, and we kind of hold down the data end of things for this particular grant.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Yeah, as you said, we collaborate together. They provide the data-driven, evidence-based type of research that we need to report back to the CDC. And this is just again like one of our annual reviews based on what our action plan is on an annual basis, the goals that we have, if we've met those goals and objectives as we report them back to the CDC, and an overview of our activities. So Dan, you could scroll forward. Okay. So this is our my letter to all of you out there. So dear Western New York Changemakers, as we officially begin our seventh year as an organization, sixth year being federally funded by the White House Office of Drug Control Policy, I would like to humbly state that we would not be here without you today. At Focus, the Western New York Youth Addiction Prevention Coalition, our mission is to prevent, reduce youth addiction through community collaboration. We empower our local community by educating them on current drug trends, resources available through our strategic partners, and hosting drug-free events. We use data-driven, evidence-based strategies. It's proven to be effective over time in changing the community. We collect and analyze our data every 2 years from our 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students in Lancaster and Depew. We share that data with our strategic partners, and we create programming to provide support to our local youth to empower them. Our goal over the next coming years is to connect with more youth and their families, become sustainable through strategic partnerships that become legacy partners or community contributors, and continue to grow our network of support for the youth in need, people they can talk to, guide them, mentor them, and be a light to provide hope during their trying times. Our goal, so when 1 out of 4 of our local youth think that they're a failure, and again, we get that from our data, the least we can do is surround them with open arms of acceptance, with eyes of acknowledgement, with a voice of hope that dark days forge us, not forget us, and with listening ears of intense submission, showing compassion to their pleading heart. One person can change the world, but then one person does not work alone. Our legacy board member, Audrey Hammernick, may she rest in peace. She left us this past year in 2024. She changed our world with a servant heart. She had eyes of opportunity and a slew of foot soldiers who pledged allegiance to her causes. So may we see those opportunities that present themselves in our lives as a chance to be a miracle to someone in need, to grab our fellow brothers and sisters who are sitting on the sidelines of war, waiting for their chance to be deployed, to assist the souls in searching for hope, pleading for the day they get activated, and serve the ones silently suffering in the trenches of despair. So I just ask all of you, when you wake, remember your worth. You may be a man, but you're mighty. Seek servanthood and above all, cherish the youth who have yet to see their value. Protect them at all costs. The new world rests in their hands. They're weak from watching a world that's changing faster than they can grasp. So don't give up your ranks in the battles that you've won. Show them the way. Their final hope remains in us, leading them to victory. A little bit about Focus. We were established really at the tail end of 2017 to 2018, but I do want to, you can go back to the board of directors, Dan, sorry. I do want to just acknowledge my board of directors, my vice president, Deb LeBounty. She's a mental health counselor from Spectrum Health Services. Our secretary, Gianna Reinick, she is a Dubuque High School student. My treasurer, Jessica Mead. Another board member, Deb Glowney, Bank on Buffalo, and parent and business owner, Mindy Nowak from Hair Shop 777. And as I mentioned, we'd like to include forever our honorary lifetime member, Audrey Hammernick. She was the trustee with the Village of Depew. She spearheaded one of the largest seed, money seed planting for the Depew Community Center, which is now fully restored, fully operational for the Depew community. She helped a lot of people and their families through food scarcity and economic situations. So she will forever be our honorary lifetime member. Our mission here at Focus is to prevent and reduce youth substance use in Western New York through community collaboration. Our vision is to really see a drug-free community with a drug-free youth. And our tactics, as mentioned, is evidence-based, data-driven environmental strategies and using a federally approved strategic prevention framework. We create youth-centered, drug-free communities. Dan, if you want to take how we get things done.
Sure, would love to. Thanks for that background on one of the things about Focus that's so great is the community buy-in and people like Audrey who unfortunately, like Gwendolyn said, we lost last year. And Audrey still, her legacy still remains a major driver of things in Lancaster, Depew area, and this coalition is especially successful because of the community's buy-in, and as we work with a lot of coalitions, so I can speak to these things, as well as leadership. Gwendolyn is a fearless leader who pushes for change and makes a lot of that change happen. So, how does that happen though through the lens of our grant funding? So really, we're not going to get too bogged down in sort of theory, that sort of thing. But since we are grant funded, we do have some guidelines that we have to follow in order to use the funds appropriately and make for sustainable change in our communities and for healthier youth and adults. And so the first part of that, how Focus gets things done, is through a framework that includes all what we call sectors of the community. And that kind of gets back to when we were talking about Audrey and the community buy-in for Focus. The Drug-Free Communities Grant specifies a framework where we define 12 key sectors in the community that we bring together. Picture this this centerpiece here that has the houses. Picture that being a table where we're all having a coalition meeting or a meeting to talk about our youth or our families. The idea is that we have all of these players from the community around that table to implement evidence-based and data-driven programs. So really, it's not sort of we feel like doing this, or we really heard from folks that we need to do this. It is much more structured and sort of clinical in the sense that we have to collect a lot of data. We have to involve a lot of people in decision making. We have to prioritize issues, and the prioritization of those issues has to be done through data. We have to have data to support what we say we're going to do. So grants for years in the past, grants have now become a lot more restrictive, and that is because grants, at least some grants, were not used properly in decades past. So now there's a lot more oversight, guidance, sort of frameworks that we follow, and this is one of them, the 12 sectors. A second is what we call the Strategic Prevention Framework. If anybody happens to be watching this from a prevention, substance use prevention, the substance use prevention field, they will know this very, very familiar, very familiar with this SPIF flower, as we call it, Strategic Prevention Framework. We shorten to SPIF. And this is essentially just a framework for the way that we proceed through deciding on and implementing programs. So as I said, we assess our needs, we collect data, we build capacity, we get all 12 of those sectors together around the table. We plan, so that is to say we actually formalize a plan and everybody has some part to play in that plan. We implement, and that is, of course, going out into the community and doing the things that we have planned and assessed that we need to do to affect community change. And then we evaluate, and that's kind of where our Catalyst research, as we talked about at the beginning, our sort of strength is in the evaluation piece, kind of looking at the data afterwards and the efforts afterwards and saying, did we make a change? Was there some signal in what we did? And overlaying all of that is this sustainability and cultural competence. So through this is not a linear process. We have to kind of always be going back and forth between these steps. So while you're building capacity, you might need to go back and reassess needs, sort of that sort of thing, right? But while we're doing that, while we're moving through this process with each one of our intervention strategies and activities, we always have to think about how will we sustain this without federal funding. And this is one of Focus's stronger aspects, I think, is the contributions from community members and the buy-in to the coalition. And we also have to be culturally competent, right? We have to know how to reach and speak with our target audiences. We have to tailor our interventions and strategies to those different audiences. So if we're talking to a group of parents, it's going to be a much different, likely going to be a much different conversation than when we're talking with a bunch of middle schoolers, right? So we have to know who our audience is, and we have to think about that all the time. And finally, as a guiding principle, we have what are called the 7 strategies for community change. And these, again, all of this stuff that I'm talking about here is best practice for a reason. It has been researched and through federal funding, and it has been shown to be an effective framework for creating change in the community. So we use these 7 different strategies for community change, and really they move from the individual level. So thinking of just providing information to individuals, giving them a flyer, talking with them for 10 minutes about, the effect of substance use on the developing brain of youth, for example, moving through still more individual level skills like strategies like enhancing skills, teaching individuals how to recognize signs and symptoms of use, that sort of thing. Changing physical design, really kind of changing the way our built environment around us encourages or discourages substance use. And that is more of a community level strategy, providing support. Again, these kind of get to more community level strategies where we're providing alternative events for youth. Another huge strong suit of Focus, and Gwendolyn will talk about that soon. Enhancing access and reducing barriers. So what prevents folks from getting help if they need help? What would help folks to maybe reach out and learn more, so enhancing access to resources while reducing barriers to those resources is very important. Changing consequences. So For example, if we know that 15 establishments out of 20 in a given area have successfully passed a compliance check on alcohol, we might want to recognize them in the newspaper and say, hey, you're doing a great job here, instead of just, sort of uh, putting sort of a negative light on the folks that might have failed something like a compliance check. So changing the way that we look at consequences, changing the way we look at substance use, and then of course modifying and changing policies. So like smoke-free parks, that sort of thing. So through all of these, and I'm sorry this was a little long-winded, but there's a lot on this one particular page. Through all of those, these sort of frameworks and strategies, we plan, we implement, we evaluate, rinse and repeat. So what that actually kind of leads to is outcomes, right? So we do all of this planning and we do all of this capacity building and data collection. But is the juice worth the squeeze, right? So what we do once every 2 years is we do an anonymous survey in the Lancaster and Depew schools. It is a validated survey, so that, for example, we can catch students that are inconsistent in their answers and we can remove them from the analysis. And really what we want to do is see is substance use coming down. And we have some other metrics that we look at as well, but today we're just going to look at substance use trends for the purposes of this meeting. And we see, are we moving what we're intending to move in terms of key metrics? So we're very lucky to have the buy-in from both Lancaster and Depew school districts. And through them, we are, again, lucky to have about 1,300 students complete the survey each year, every 2 years, sorry. We do that once every 2 years, and it's in grades 8, 10, and 12. So here is a little bit of trend information on local results for and national results for key substances that we're looking at in our community. And I will take just a couple minutes too, because there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Of course, it's interesting for me. I'm a data guy. But if we just look at the way this table is laid out, these first three columns are the last three administrations of the Focus Lancaster Depew survey. This last column is the 2023 national percentage. This comes from a source called Monitoring the Future. If you Google that, you'd be able to look at a lot of national information. But there's a lot of interesting things happening here, not only with the trends within Lancaster, the Depew catchment area, but also compared us, the coalition, we'll say that's us compared to the national percentage average. And so the first thing I would say here is that and this is happening nationally. If you look at the national numbers and a trend analysis as well, the numbers, the percentage of youth that are using substances is continually declining. There was of course, you see here, let's look at example at alcohol. We had 33.2% of students who responded to the survey in 2019 say that they had used alcohol in the past 30 days. In 2021, that had dropped to 14%. So the explanation that we came up with, or everybody thought was the explanation for these big drops from 2019 to 2021 was COVID, right? There was a lockdown. Kids might not have access to alcohol if, it isn't in their own home. People weren't getting together to party. Vaping and stuff like that went down, and we thought, well, it's probably because youth and maybe even adults didn't want to share vapes. And so like we all had this idea that, and even the researchers nationally thought, well, COVID really sort of changed the world of substance use in terms of restricting access and really reducing use. Well, now we're in 2023, and those numbers continue to fall, and they continue to fall nationally as well. We do a lot of work in Western New York, and so I can speak to not only sort of the national comparison, but sort of a regional comparison. You'll see in 2023 that we're at about 12% of students saying that they had alcohol in the past 30 days, pretty comparable to the national average, a little bit under. And 1.7% said they've used cigarettes. Again, this is the sort of your old-fashioned cigarette versus 2.1 overall. So these are, we're pretty much even with national averages, beating out the national average a little bit. Where things get pretty interesting is with marijuana use. We had talked about marijuana use, I think on, even in last year's report, how marijuana use, we thought that with legalization and recreationalization and all of those sorts of things, that this number would just continue to climb. And in fact, it hasn't. Vaping of marijuana, you can see here at the bottom, 4.3% of students said they vaped marijuana in the past 30 days. 4.9% said that they've used marijuana in the past 30 days. We're kind of stuck with this wording. But these are the numbers, and you'll see that it's basically half the national average here. And it's the same group. It's 8th, 10th, and 12th graders nationally. It's 8th, 10th, and 12th graders locally. So the fact that we're running underneath the national average and quite below the national average for marijuana is a very interesting finding. And it is something that we're finding across Western New York. What is driving that? We don't know. We've been having discussions about that. But I think time will tell. This might end up going back upwards as things continue to sort of revert to the way they were before the pandemic. We don't know yet. This is why we do the survey once every 2 years. And this is one of the key findings here is that even though marijuana has become normalized, the actual usage rate has come down. So just very quickly here, opioid prescriptions, which is obviously a major issue because it is such a dangerous substance, and now we have fentanyl and contaminants in there that make especially synthetic and illicit fake imported prescription drugs that much more dangerous. We really want to keep an eye on this, even if it is less than 1% of the students using. This is the kind of substance that, as they say, one pill can kill. So we do want to keep an eye on this. Unfortunately, there is no direct national comparison for opioids. So the thought is that, we know that prescription misuse is declining overall, somewhere around 2% nationally. But pulling out opioids as compared to something like Adderall or tranquilizer, something like that, we just don't have that at the national level. Last two quickly, vaping nicotine and vaping marijuana. Vaping, this cigarette, even though cigarette use is increasing a little bit here, this is interesting too, because, if vaping is decreasing a little bit, but smoking cigarettes, is increasing a little bit, there seems to be a continual interplay between cigarettes and vaping nicotine, right? Some youth are probably not using cigarettes to start with, but they use vapes and then get access to cigarettes and are using cigarettes. Same thing, vice versa. Don't have access to cigarettes, think cigarettes are gross, that sort of thing, decide to use a vape instead. So while these numbers are encouraging, the nicotine use is still pretty high, right? So while overall the numbers are coming down, we still have work to do, and specifically with areas related to vaping, and I think continuing these numbers related to marijuana use. The key here is to keep them down, right? They are down, and the last thing we want to see is have them shoot back up. And so what we want to do here as a coalition is keep a very close eye on this, keep our ears to the pavement, as it were, and make sure that if there are increases in usage in school, outside of school, anywhere we hear about it, that we pay attention to it very closely and we address it.
Sorry, Dan, hold on that slide real quick. I just want to make a couple comments.
Yeah, yeah.
So in regards to the opioids, and you were talking about illicit fentanyl, things like that, I will say, one of the things that happened last year was just working with our congressman. He's fully aware of illicit use of fentanyl on our streets and just with trafficking and things like that. So we were asked to be like that community expert opinion on a community roundtable where he was pushing, this Halt Fentanyl Act. So I think that we have a lot of support. At least we've learned a lot during the peak of the heroin epidemic, the opioid epidemic. So I think that at least we have support on a legislative side, on a legal side. And then in regards to the vaping nicotine versus the cigarettes, more recently I was asked to be like that expert, commentary person on a Channel 7 news story that was released. And it was about this very slide that we're talking about, how drug use, substance use is going down amongst our youth over time. And they were using that monitoring the future data, so that national percentage data. And so what I did is I pulled up our data and I said, yes, like just like their data, our data is also tracking down. But a big thing that they were also focusing on was this uptick in Zins. So I don't know. I mean, don't want to go off on a tangent. Zins, if you don't know, it's like a chewable nicotine and a little nicotine pouch. There's a lot of youth that were introduced to vaping, which is highly concentrated nicotine, easy to use, right? They could just grab it, go where it's easily disguisable. There's many different forms and methods. It tastes good, it doesn't smell bad. So it's easy to use, it's accessible, and it's also highly potent with nicotine. They got addicted. And now they're starting to see some of the risks that are associated with some of these vapes. And now they're trying to like use Zens as a way of their own cessation, to be able to wean themselves off of vapes, they're going to Zens. So I would just, like Dan said, what we are trying to figure out, we have the data and what we do with this quantitative data, right? It's a lot of quantity, it's a lot of information. We try to qualify this information every other year through focus groups, key informant interviews. And this spring, we are actually going to be kind of approaching the topics of like, why is use going down, but why are they, why would there be an uptick in cigarettes versus, vaping nicotine? So when we see this data, the focus groups that we'll do will be between Lancaster and Depew students, as well as the social workers within both districts and family care coordinator. We want to understand a little deeper on why these numbers are the way that they are. So that'll be coming up in the next annual report next year as we're reporting data. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, those are great points. I think we need to, so we do ask a question about smokeless tobacco on the survey that we use. I think we'll probably want to put an example of that as in update our example substance, because I think we might have something old in there like Skoal, like old school chewing tobacco. But yeah, it's interesting too because where we are, if anybody's watching this from outside of the Buffalo area, we're in Buffalo, New York, and of course it's a huge football town, and some of the Buffalo Bills were talking about how they use the Zins, right? And I we was talking, I forget exactly what the setting of the conversation was, but they were talking about how much they loved using them and how it gave them an edge and stuff like that. And so it was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So when you see there's, and again, if you're not from around this area, there's a huge, like it's a Josh Allen uh love fest. Everybody loves him, and if he's using Zins, there might be some kids that think there's my role model, the superhero using Zins. I don't want to be that downer, but it is interesting that that's happening. And on the opioid piece, I would say, I think one of the reasons that opioids got sort of under control the way that they did is that there was a national response to the opioid epidemic like we haven't seen even with tobacco. I mean, tobacco and cigarettes, that took decades to address and really tamp down to the levels that we see today. Opioids, of course, it was all, as everybody knows, it was all over the news. The feds got involved pretty quickly, took the Sackler family, who were the owners of Purdue Pharma and who sort of put OxyContin on the map. Well, they developed it. They were taken to task, and now there are billions and billions of dollars being distributed through a settlement from that family. So there's a very good reason why opioids kind of took the nosedive that they did. Hopefully, the availability is such that is so low that there won't be kids getting hooked on that in their younger years and dealing with issues as they grow into young adults.
And I will say, last comment as far as marijuana, we knowing that marijuana was legal on a medicinal basis, knowing that legislation was coming through for it to be approved to be recreational. As far as our coalition and what we were doing is we were on the offensive and we took a lot of this data, we took it to our local towns, in villages, we did what we could do to at least minimize the access to a lot of these type of products with our youth. So local policy is a big one, but we've been on the offensive since the get-go. Education, empowering the parents and the youth with what's out there. So, you know, again, like you said, Dan, I don't know, how long we're going to be able to hold these numbers. I'm thankful that it did have that decrease, but again, even at the end of the day, if we could just hold that number and it doesn't keep going up as more access is available to these youth, that's my goal. Go ahead.
Yep, I remember when I first got into this field, these numbers, 30-40% of kids using alcohol in the past 30 days, the very, very common. And marijuana use, it just the work that has been done in the prevention field and through these drug-free communities grants, and especially in Lancaster Depew and what Gwendolyn and team have been able to accomplish is really excellent. So my last slide for right now is a brief one. Just four key goals for the coalition. The top two we already kind of covered here. So one of our key goals is to decrease the reported past 30-day marijuana use by 2% every 2 years. So like we said, we do the survey once every 2 years. We want to go from, it's 2 percentage points, right? So if we want to go from, it, we you could interpret this two ways. I don't want to get too mathematical about it, but the idea here is that from 2021 to 2023, past 30-day marijuana use decreased from 6.8 to 4.9. Not quite 2 percentage points, but certainly more than 2% in terms of raw numbers. So this objective was met. Also decreasing past 30-day alcohol use in students grades 8 to 12. Actually, this is grades 8, 10, 12. We use 8, 10, 12 as a sort of a sample, a good sample to estimate the full range of students in grades 8 to 12. So this is technically sort of correct here by 2% every 2 years. So the last time we surveyed in 2023, past 30-day alcohol use also decreased from 14 to 11.7. And that's where we're talking about, these numbers keep going down, and it'll be very interesting when we survey again this year to see what happens. To Gwendolyn's point, holding the line is a good thing, especially when these numbers are getting down to where they're getting to. Another thing that that focus has been really focused on, for lack of a better word, is the capacity building. We talked about that sort of framework of planning and implementing and building capacity. So one of the key things for this grant is to have the person power to be able to make things happen. And um, I know that Gwendolyn, one of Gwendolyn's main tasks or goals here for the coalition has been, especially with youth and parents. I mean, youth and parents are so important to this effort that we really want to get as many of them around that table that we sort of looked at previously, where we had the sectors all around, the table. And so we went from having 16 youth and adult sector stakeholders in 2023 to 34 in 2024, which is 112% increase. So that is awesome. Congratulations on that, Gwendolyn. That's a huge accomplishment. And then another thing, and a lot of coalitions don't do this sort of private capital raising, fundraising, and Focus is really good at this through a lot of different efforts, and Gwendolyn will talk about that a little bit. But the idea here is to raise 20,000 in capital by the end of 2024. So we'd say, well, we only hit 35% of goal, but that 20,000 that's a pretty ambitious target for any nonprofit, any sort of community coalition. The fact that in addition to grant funding and in addition to individual donations and things like that, I don't know if that is included in here, but even if it is, $7,000 in contributions, that is one thing that as time goes on and Focus becomes more and more of an institution, which it already is institutionalized in the community, the go-to place for prevention in the community, this number will continue to increase and contribute to the sustainability of programs that help youth and adults in the community. And I'm sure Gwendolyn will talk about that a bit more as we get to the fundraising part. So I'll talk just very quickly, and then Gwendolyn, if you want to take the social media piece. So we have to report our reach every year to the feds. And in this particular year, over 20 activities offered, and that ranged from everything from providing information to through those 7 strategies for community change that we talked about earlier, changing consequences, providing support, healthy alternative activities, that sort of thing. Reaching over 1,600 adults. So, in a community that is of modest size, reaching 600 adults directly through community events, direct outreach, educational sessions, and more. That's, a good canvassing of this area. And 200 plus youth reach. So community events, direct outreach, educational sessions, and more. So there's sort of the same event listings here. But the idea is getting out there, putting out more, more than one event per month, getting out there. I would imagine there are also things that we probably did not have included in this report that would pump these numbers up a little bit more. But the idea here is, each year getting out there, offering multiple activities a month, getting as many adults and youth involved, and doing that year over year. And one of the major ways that, and again, to Gwendolyn and Focus's credit, is leveraging social media and traditional media to reach these different adults. So these reach numbers down here, of course, can't be directly compared to these numbers up here. This is our logging through sign-in sheets and sort of head counts and that sort of thing. And then these numbers down here, 21,900. Oh, that's a typo. Sorry. I will fix that. 21,900 reached in 2024. That is, of course, just the Facebook the numbers coming through and saying you've reached that many folks in 2024. So do you want to talk a little bit about your social media reach, Gwendolyn? Because I know that's a very strong part.
Yeah, no, I can do that. I mean, obviously, we live in a digital age, so you can't exist without being on social media, in the media as well. Digital media is one of the largest avenues these days, even just for businesses to be able to reach the masses. I mean, you can do targeted campaigns to specific demographic within your geographical area. It's called geofencing. So I'm that generation that's kind of the bridge, between the boomers and the millennials. I'm a Gen Xer, so I know what life was like before social media and growing into it and technology and the internet. So a little bit of both worlds, but understanding that you need all sources of channels, print even, to be able to reach the whole community. So yeah, I mean, we do whatever we can to be able to grow our numbers. Like Dan said, those numbers above, like as far as the 1,600 adults and 200 youth, those are definitely defined. I could give you the names of every single one of those people in that we reach specifically, right? Like you said, sign-in sheets, registration sheets for all of our events. So that's like direct. These are all just outreach for all of our social media. These are not, fictitious by any means. This is takes a lot of work. Some of the algorithms are a lot easier. Some of the platforms are easier to get these numbers. But I have to go through and look at pull up reports on the Meta Suite, on Facebook, and I have to look at how many people were reached for this post and this and this, and I can run some reports annually, which is great. So that's one way to do it on Facebook. I always tell, people within my organization, my board members, you're not going to reach people if you don't share it, if you don't comment. There's little ways to kind of grow that audience. And you can't just like things anymore. You have to interact with it. Videos work better than static content, it's called, like just actual words. So there's a lot of science to it. You have to be good at marketing to be able to understand these things, but it's a part of the job if you're going to reach people, right? So you can see, I mean, we've grown our followers. We're up by 3%. We reached that number on Facebook. We're at 100 followers for TikTok. Those specific followers also, those are specifically Lancaster Depew youth. So we try to, again, direct market just to those youth in this area through some of our digital marketing. We reached 1,600. Our Instagram, same thing. We're also trying to target specifically our youth, which again is illegal technically because these youth shouldn't even be on social media until they're of age, right? 18. So, but they're on there. We know that. So we've got more followers there. We're up by 17%. YouTube, it's all these videos between our annual reports, some of the live streams that we do, some of the digital ads that we do that I will re-upload on our YouTube channel. We reach 7,300 people there. Our website, I'm constantly upgrading, updating our website. We do newsletters through that. Just our newsletters alone reach probably about 350 people on a monthly basis. And then our digital campaign, we work with Town Square. We created a campaign over the past year that was just like living healthier, the best version of me, and that reached 368,000 directly of our youth in this area. We were on the Sweet Buffalo show, that's their reach, 284,000. We're on Channel 4 News on another segment, that's 540,000 for their average viewer. Channel 7 more recently for another piece, that was 245,000 people. So I say overall, we are always growing. We're doing what we can to reach those people, but it's always a number that we have to be truthful and honest about so that we can continue to grow it. A lot of things that we do, as Dan has mentioned, those specific numbers for outreach are kind of there's a couple different buckets. There's like community outreach, there's youth outreach, and I would almost say like business leader outreach, right? This past year, just one of our community events, we are always attending at the Erie County Fall Fest. We have a booth there. We have students volunteer from Depew High School Academy of Finance, from the Lancaster Youth Bureau, and we offer a scavenger hunt for the families. And it's just a fun way to engage the crowd, to get them to come and stop at your booth. And if they participate in the scavenger hunt, they get special prizes. And again, it's just a way to get people into your little space, provide them information on what we're doing in the community. We have sign-up sheets for parents and youth to be able to get involved in our non-for-profit. one of our biggest, I would say, almost like business outreach. It is a community outreach, but these are strategic. Is to recognize our change makers in the community. You know, we have done this now for, I would say, at least 4 years-ish. And we try to recognize not only people that help us, but people that are just doing good in the community that are meeting a social need or an environmental need, you know, any way to have social cultural impact and or have an effect on that impact, you know. So we will recognize at times even, you know, lawmakers, congressmen, senators. Just this past year, we recognized Bank on Buffalo, Paula D'Amico, a producer at Channel 7, Senator Gallivan out of the New York State Senator 60th District, Tops Friendly Markets, huge supporter of Focus, as well as George Brimmer. He's the family care coordinator from Lancaster Central Schools. Colleen Babcock from Horizon Health Services, Vinita Jamison, the Prevention Council for Erie County, Emmett Hunter, a Depew High School student. Our Emerging Leader Award went to a Depew High School grad, Audrey Corbett. Dwight Lowe from Home Beneath Our Feet, who creates farms in the inner city and teaches youth how to cultivate, you know, crops and to, you know, create a little like a food stand and be an entrepreneur and sell these types of things. To Tara Ellis, the president of Feedmore, and another one of our contributors, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church. We, on average, reach, I would say, just in that in itself. I mean, we usually have media, you know, like we were on Channel 4 this past year. We on Channel 7. We had press from, you know, the local Lancaster Bee. So just between those two news stations and our local newspaper, we reached tons of people just through that in itself, having stories recognizing our people there. And then, you know, we
I,
also, yeah, go ahead,
if
Dan.
I could just say one thing about it. So I would say, you know, from the standpoint of somebody, and you look at a lot of coalitions too, Gwen. It's not like I'm the only one that's working with a bunch of coalitions, but this sort of work here um, is this is you don't see this sort of work out of coalitions a lot where you have this sort of formal recognition of community members. And this is almost sort of like when we talked about sort of like changing consequences. In a way, this is changing the consequences of community behavior in terms of putting together the time to recognize folks. And we so often in community coalitions, we will call these folks and make asks of them, and say, hey, can you come to this meeting? Can you give us this data? Do you have a grant available for, you know, at Tops Friendly Markets? Do you have a grant available for food for, you know, or can you provide food for an event? Right. But much less often coalitions set things up like this, where you have a night that everybody comes together and does, you know, something that isn't directly related to, you know, planning a program. This is just an opportunity for all of these movers and shakers in the community and contributors to come together and celebrate the success of Focus and of the community overall. And in my mind, Gwendolyn, this is one of your strongest suits as a coordinator, is the ability to put together these events and get people who are, you know, at higher levels of government, that sort of thing, to come along. So this is always very impressive to me from a sort of an external evaluator standpoint. So I just wanted to let people know that are watching this that things like this, it's a ton of work to put together on the part of Gwendolyn and team, and it is a unique aspect of Focus's work.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And we do. I mean, deals, you know, connections are made in that location. I mean, we decided to do it in our local neighborhood at a local restaurant called 99 Brick Oven. It's not as fancy as the Salvatore's, you know, but it's just more wholesome. It's not a sterile environment. I had, you know, a dozen people from Horizon sitting next to a dozen people from, you know, the Prevention Council of Erie County, and they could collaborate, they can talk to each other, they can network. I've had, you know, Dwight Lowe from Home Beneath Our Feet, who's doing amazing work with our youth in the inner city, talking to Senator Gallivan's liaison, that could help maybe support his work and what he's doing and expand that even to the Depew Community Center. So, you're right. Anything I can do to showcase what our people are doing here in Western New York is a huge opportunity to just gain exposure, not only for them, but we all need each other. We all are working to support our communities. Everything touches the boundaries of these communities, touches each other's boundaries, families. So, in that at that time too, we try to raise money through our basket raffle and silent auction. So I highly suggest attending that event at any point in time. We get about 100 people. We max out the entire restaurant. Um, and we're always looking for nominees. So we also do more outreach events. When the kids are off of February break, we have traditionally done the Great Mystery Room Challenge. It's at Five Wits at the Galleria Mall. It's free, to the youth, to their parents. We bring food in. I provide resources to the parents. I have a whole little goodie bag to give them with a ton of resources that they can, not only on providers to support them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and as well as on a substance use level for them and their children, but they have time that is set aside now that they can work on a team. They can grow their relationship with their child in those rooms. So we do that on an annual basis. We do max it out at about 22 people. We're going to do it this year at Buffalo Battlegrounds. The next thing that we do is our annual mini golf tournament. Same thing, trying to get parents to just come out, hang out with their kids, have fun. Again, free to the first 20 participants. They get free food, free ice cream, free round of golf, and we create a specific tournament to where they do definitely different things. It's not always about the best score. Some of the holes they have to do certain things like putt backwards or do it by blindfolded where somebody is guiding them. So it's just again a good way for parents and youth to come together, hear a little bit about Focus, hear about what we're doing, get involved, and just have fun. Our largest annual event, though, I would say is GlowFest. We've been growing our numbers. It's definitely at about 100, if not over at this point now on an annual basis. We do it at Como Park. Everything is supported through sponsorships. We have vendors there that are providing support from Narcan training. We did Narcan training to, again, all these attendees. We have a DJ. You can see a bunch of lawn games. Messy Masterpieces, that little bottom right-hand corner booth. We have the Lancaster Library there, Spectrum Health, Best Self, Western New York, mental health advocates. So anything we could do to, Erie County Prevention Council, we can provide support to the parents and the youth in a very it's just not abrasive way. Come, have fun. We'll give you free food. Again, free food for everybody. We partner with Chick-fil-A. They provide all the sandwiches for free. We partner with Tops. They provide all the refreshments, all the snacks, and all of our sponsors, provide thousands of dollars in support so that all of our youth that participate have event t-shirts and all these things are there at the disposal for our youth. It keeps growing. We've done very well over the past couple years, and we're going to do it again this year. And lastly, I guess those are some of our showcase events. We talked about sustainability and that kind of cultural capacity as well as responsiveness, a cultural responsiveness in the inner circle of that strategic prevention framework or that SPIF flower, as Dan called it. Sustainability is huge. We're not going to have public funding forever. We are on the second part of a two-part grant through the White House Office of Drug Control Policy. The first grant was a 5-year block. We've been, obviously approved for the second 5-year grant. And after that, though, that particular grant program is done and over with. So, being a financial advisor and knowing investments, knowing financials, like we have to grow our private funding and that opportunity for sustainability. So one of those programs are to, well, what we want to do is actually start the area's very first youth addiction prevention foundation. The goal is to house that at the Greater Community Foundation, same place where you're going to see the M&T Foundation, Oshai Foundation, Ralph Wilson Foundation, some of the biggest foundations here in Western New York. And the kind of the back end of what that looks like is it's 100,000 K minimum to be able to do that and to invest it with the Greater Community Foundation. But 5.25% of that money is guaranteed back eternally, forever, to your specific cause. Or if Focus didn't exist for any particular reason, it would go specifically to youth addiction prevention. So yes, it's only 100K. It'd only be what, $5,250 a year, but that money, at very base minimum, would provide the cost for our website, which houses all of our data, all of our strategies, all the information that allows anybody to do this on a volunteer basis to be successful and to create community level change. It would provide, some marketing materials for events. It would provide the phone number that you call, the emails to be able to communicate with any particular volunteer. So it might not be able to pay for staff, but it would definitely pay for the fundamentals of the organization, specifically the data and the outreach. And we do that through two programs. One of them is through like a legacy partner program. We have organizations like Tobbs, Chick-fil-A, Queen City Collaborative, Brick Oven. And we have individuals and their families like Glenn Jackson. He lives in Lancaster. He's, one of the heads of the M&T Foundation. Deb Glani from Bank on Buffalo, Clarity Group, Hogan Willig. These are all individuals. If you were to give us that one-time donation of $1,000, or at least there's certain tiers. So it starts at $500 to $999 for a gold level. $9,000 to up to $4,999 would actually be our platinum. And one thing that is brand new is actually our diamond level, which I got to add to this report. But basically, all these levels they're listed on the website, hyperlinked to your particular company. So you get exposure there. We are obviously know my reach on the website, our reach. Anytime we have an event, whether it's our Impact Awards, and then we do Impact Conferences, which is it's a business conference per se, community outreach. We have a panel. We've had the president of the Oshai Foundation, that's talked on there. We've had, Glenn Jackson from the M&T Foundation. We've had the owners from Solino Plumbing. These are people that actually use social impact as a model in their business. So they have a business, but they give back a portion of their proceeds. They have a philanthropic arm to their business. We know on the investment side, in my world, that, if you have that type of structure, you're going to reach the next generation who wants to have an impact. So you're going to attract employees, you're going to retain these employees, you're going to outperform other companies in the same industry during down markets, and you're going to have a higher profit margin. So not only is it good for your community, it's good for your business. And those types of events, we market you as a legacy partner. So you'll be recognized at every one of those conferences that are impact awards. And these specific levels, you get certificates, you get plaques. For the platinum level, you get a plaque, a nice wooden, it's actually from a piece of river oak out of the Buffalo River. It's a historic plaque. And then for the next level up, the diamond level, if 5,000 and above, you actually get a live interview on the Sweet Buffalo Show, which goes live on Channel 4. So if you're trying to reach, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people for at least $5,000, for me as a business person and a marketer, you can't spend $5,000 and reach that amount of people in any type of marketing, especially when it comes to TV. So that's one way to get that exposure, just by helping us. And these specific partners, that money goes directly into that account that we're fundraising for to reach that 100K to meet that 100K minimum to create that foundation. Our next program, Dan, you can keep going, is our community. Oh, we didn't talk about it. I got to add that too. They're called community contributors. You can go to our website, and basically that's a way you can just donate on a monthly basis, and there's certain levels to do that. Thanks, Dan. So you can do $10, $20, $30, $40 a month. It's all through PayPal. You can start it at any time, cancel it at any time. And all of your information, again, is listed at all of our premier events. And then you're also listed on our website. So, again, it's the lower level. Maybe you can't do that full amount, but you can be a monthly contributor. That would be fantastic. And all of this leads to our goal, right? Um, we only have so much money coming in from our grant on a federal level. Again, this grant is 125K a year. On a state level, depend upon what is available out there, we average potentially about 2,500 as we apply for specific grants on a state level. A lot of that is for social host law kind of awareness and things like that. Um, the county level, we it's not guaranteed. It depends on, who's managing the funds. And on a private level, as you can see, we got to that 39% of the 20,000. But the goal is to raise 20K a year, especially now, so that we can get to that 100K after our fifth and final year of this 5-year grant, so we can have that foundation. As you can see, like, it's not a lot of money to work with for the impact that we have. A lot of what we do is volunteer base. So maybe money is not a thing. Maybe it's just your time. And we always appreciate people's time. Come to our one of our meetings if maybe you like to be maybe you like fundraising. We're going to start doing a lot more fundraising this year because we have to start getting these numbers up. So every quarter, we're going to be doing fundraising. One of those things are going to be like things like like a meat raffle is going to come up this spring. We're going to be announcing that. In the summer, we're going to be raising money through a chicken barbecue at the Depew High School Academy of Finance car show. That's coming up in June. We're going to try to do like other, fundraising efforts where, you can either do it through Panera or other businesses will give you a percentage back of their profit that day. And then lastly, our last quarter event obviously is our Impact Awards and annual fundraiser. That's our largest one so far, where we gather that money. But if it's not fundraising, if it's maybe you're an event coordinator, maybe you are great at creating digital art and graphic design, and you want to create graphics for us to share on social media, or you're a youth and you want to help us run social media. I've had youth run our social media channels, and that's just a great way to be able to engage the actual demographic that we're looking for. So always looking for volunteers, spreading the knowledge of who we are, helping us at these events, and just working with us. So I guess just lastly, this is our final plea, right? We know that prevention, just $1 prevention saves anywhere from $2 to $20 technically, and government addiction costs or recovery services. So there's all these sectors that Dan talked about. It is proven if everybody's all sitting at the table, whether it's business or, it's media, schools, parents, civic groups, the government, law enforcement, everybody has a role to play and to be able to create a clean and healthier community. So we just ask that if this is something that, is within you, that you're passionate about, leading the next generation, empowering the next generation to be addiction free, that's us, because it's not just about, educating them on drugs. It's helping them getting them connected to mental health support services, getting them into, exposing them to groups and things that they can do that protect them from substance use, like clubs, volunteering at events, helping them just in life skills and getting them equipped to be able to get a job. So it covers so much, food scarcity, domestic violence. Like there's so much that gets involved when it comes to addiction. So does prevention. It's a holistic approach for a holistic person. And we talked about the different ways, that you can get involved. Like I said, I kind of calculated our average reach, through our media channels. If you were to be a legacy partner, you're recognized on all those different areas, our website, on our social media. You get recognized through these plaques and certificates, depending upon your level. We're ranging about 40K, between all the different channels. And that's pretty low considering. Like you saw, we reached $500,000 just in that final quarter through our news report. So you can do that monthly, being a monthly contributor, or just being a sponsor at any one of our premier events. You know, when this grant is over, we're going to need, the money to offset the cost to these events. The February break one averages about $1,500 to be able to provide food and the costs of the youth and their parents to come. The Impact Conference that we're going to be doing every spring, that's probably about the same amount of money. And again, we have, although we have community leaders on the panel, we have non-for-profits that have vendor tables surrounded the entire room. So hey, maybe addiction isn't it. Maybe addiction prevention isn't your cause that you want to focus on as a business. Maybe it's veterans. We usually have Western New York heroes there. Maybe it's domestic violence. Maybe it's food scarcity. Whatever your cause may be, we have a slew of those types of people, with tables surrounding our event for you to talk to them, connect with them, and see how you can help them. The annual mini golf tournament, probably about $1,000 there between just the costs and the prizes that we give away to, entice the families to come and have fun. Our biggest one is obviously Glow Fest that averages about 7K is our costs. And all of that is offset by our sponsorship. So, again, without sponsors, we honestly we couldn't do these events. And then our impact awards, we obviously sell tickets to be able to offset the cost of our food, but you have opportunities to be dinner sponsors, program sponsors, put ads in our award book. That's all going to be seen by some of the top leaders here in Western New York. So, ton of ways to get involved, a ton for us still to do. So, as I said, not everybody not every one of you wants to do our outreach, right? So, but if you are, there's a ton for you to assist us with, and we'll take your skills and talents however you may come. But if it's not us, the least thing that I could say is just get out there, find a cause, because our next generation really requires it out of you as a leader, to get out there and create some sort of community impact. So, that's all I got. Dan, any final comments?
One comment, and that just builds on what you were just saying. Substance use, although this is a substance use prevention coalition, nothing happens in a vacuum, as everybody knows. And communities, as we talked about through that sort of sector approach and the capacity building, we all need to lean on each other, especially now. It's, things are kind of tough all around, and kids are going through a lot, and they go through a lot even just growing up. So um, I think your point about even if prevention is not your key field, there are so many, like you said, food insecurity, disability status, veteran status, everything is intertwined here. And so whatever your passion is, I would recommend, just as somebody who views this program and the work that Gwendolyn and the team does, I would encourage you to reach out, because even if you don't think from this presentation that there's a fit, I can almost guarantee you that if you care about the community, there's a fit for you within Focus. So that's my parting shot.
I like that, Dan. Yeah. And I would just say lastly as well, we're not everything we do is data driven, it's evidence based. So a big part of our funding that we receive on an annual basis goes towards training. So, training and advocacy. So, I mean, every year, myself and my program director we're in DC, and we're, connecting with our officials, on the Hill, and advocating to continue the support that they have for this program, because without it, we couldn't drive those numbers down, honestly, right? So, it's a lot of advocacy. We do that. And meanwhile, while we're on the Hill, we're bringing that research to them. So this isn't just, us being a little community coalition and making cupcakes, trying to raise some money and spread some good. Like, we're out there attacking this from so many different directions, but with an educated and a proven approach that actually affects our community over time. And when we go to our training, we do it twice a year. Once is in DC, and then they rotate locations. We'll be going away again in the summer. It's a 2 weeks worth on an annual basis worth of intense training. What's happening on the streets? You know, the DEA is there, the CDC's there, the National Institute of Health is there. We're getting cutting edge research on what's happening in addiction science, what's happening on the streets across America, and we can collaborate with each other and work with each other to help, drive these numbers down. So, what we do is definitely an educated approach. It's all data driven and evidence based. And the information and the research that we get is hands down, um, you know, it's indescribable what we are able to receive to be effective. So I would just say, again, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. Anybody that you would see interested, please reach out to us at it's info at forourcommunitytoday.org. You can go to our website, forourcommunitytoday.org. Call our phone number, hit the contact us submission button, follow us, get on our newsletter, follow us across social media. We're always looking, for support. And I love that billboard that we did actually a couple years ago. Like, what is your legacy? And my goal is to hopefully charge every one of you here in Western New York to invest in our youth. So thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.